No, I see you're not recording. Thank you.
Okay, so now
Okay,
I can
good.
start. Okay, so my name is Timna. I live in Mare Gamla, which is in the Golan Heights. I teach in Yeshivat Tamar and in Ulpanat Regavim in the Golan. Two wonderful schools, very different from one another. The project that I'm going to talk about, the TED Talks, is something I've only done in Yeshivat Tamar. But since I'm encouraging you today to do it in other schools, I'm definitely going to try and do it also in the Ulpana, which is a little bit more challenging. So this is my challenge for next year. Okay. So I'm starting with a quote. Students take greater control over their learning, and as such, learning is open-ended and is not always predictable. And this is take from a book about inquiry-based learning by Reynolds. And I think this is what inspires me to try projects such as the TED Talks, because it might be scary for some of us, or we feel inconfident when we need to let go. But I want to see my students become more independent, want to gain knowledge. And this, I think, is the best way I've found so far. Okay, so when we're talking about TED Talks, the question is really what do students gain out of it? And of course, that speaking and presenting are the skills we all want to encourage them to develop and use curriculum, but want also to look at other things. And I will present during my presentation some options to show how it can be done in different levels. But when I want to get into the deepest level of work I can get with my students, these are the things I can definitely gain out of it. Speaking and presenting, of course, we can teach them about asking questions, making assumptions, researching and processing information, drawing conclusions, and coming up with suggestions. And this is like the complete process I've managed to do during this year with my 11th graders. So basically, when we started the project, we had to start talking about TED, the organization, and what it is, because I rudely took on the name of giving it the name of TED Talk. And the first time I did the project with my 10th graders 3 years ago, I said that TED is Tamar English Day because I teach in Yeshivat Tamar. But we started talking about TED, and actually it was a part of, I participated in a read course about the title was read the programs or project. Melissa ran it. It was great. And one of the programs was TED, and it got me really excited. So I started by talking with my students about what TED is. Do you know the motto of TED? What is it? Anyone? Do you know what they say? Like TED, ideas worth sharing. So I asked my students, what inspires you? And we talked about inspiration and what TED Talks are all about. So that was the first stage, to get to know TED Talks. And the second one was we asked ourselves, what makes a good TED Talk? How do we evaluate this lecture that we've just watched? What are we looking at? And the students, together with me, decided what are the rubrics for for evaluating the TED Talks that we are watching in class. And we ask also, whom do we find interesting or inspiring and why? And we tried, and the next slide, I don't think I'll open them, but I added 3 links to different TED Talks that I showed them in class. So you can look and see, very different from one another. A young boy, an old woman, something that talks about, someone that who talks about cell phones, and someone who talks about education. And it was very interesting to see what inspires us, what interests us. And they created their own chart for evaluating a good presentation. They talked about topic of the presentation. Do I relate to it? How do I feel about it? Is it thought-provoking? The speech, the way the speaker presents his or her story, rhetorics, of course, how do they speak? What do they know? How persuasive are they? And of course, we talked about the slideshow, and was it effective? Was it helpful? And all of these were like a pre-work before we started talking about our own TED Talks. So here, these are the links I promised. It will be on my slide that you'll be able to get later. And it's 3 examples for TED Talks that students evaluated in class, and they had to analyze them, not very seriously, but to say, was it good according to the standard, according to the rubrics that we all set together. So you have one about addiction to cell phones given by a teenage boy, and one about being weird given by a young child. And of course, I'm sure you all know this one about, it is called Every Child Needs Champion. And I believe we've all watched it, and surprisingly, the boys found it very inspiring, even though the speaker couldn't be more different than them, and they assumed that they will relate more to someone who is more of their age and gender and nationality, but it was very interesting. It's a very interesting experiment. Grading rubrics, because in the end, they all wanted to know how much did they get for their TED Talk. And it was a process, so the grading rubrics were important. And these are the things I chose to put stress on: content, presentation and graphics, time limits, which none of my students really held. It was very hard for them. They all love to talk, and it was very long. Voice, body language, eye contact, language and mechanics, both in speech and presentation, structure and order, references, which was a hard thing for them to apply to their work, and the last, inspiring. Sorry, I click on it. We said, is it inspiring? Did it inspire your listeners? Was it inspiring for you? Okay, this schedule, I tried to make something rational for my students this year, and I gave it 4 lessons. Okay, the first, and this is without learning about TED Talks, because this is something we've done last year. So this year, after they've already experienced once with creating a TED Talk, and I'll talk in a minute about the differences. This year I told them, okay, we're doing TED Talks again. Choose a topic and a partner. Formulate a research question and start looking for sources of information. That was the first lesson. And my plan was to give it 4 lessons and then start presenting, 3 lessons and start presenting. The truth was it took longer than 3 lessons. And I think that it makes sense to give it at least 5 lessons. I wouldn't give it more than 5 lessons because we want them to be productive and effective. And if we'll give them too much time, this is what I feel, they'll start to mess around with their time. And also time management is a skill they can learn from this project. So this was my wannabe schedule. They in other subjects and life happens, but that was the plan. Sorry. Okay, so I'll start talking about the differences between the years. Choosing a topic was the first thing they had to do. So like I said, the first year we had more to do with the TED Talk, the organization TED, and we talked about ideas worth spreading. So our topic was inspiration, and I asked them, what inspires you? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to bring into the class? So it was more of the students' inner world and about things they wanted to learn more about. They had to choose a topic. I didn't put any limitation on it. Of course, they had to approve the topic with me to make sure it's appropriate, serious enough, not harmful for anyone else. And that was the first year. And they have done incredible work. Most of them chose really interesting topics. They read about their topics. They had insights. They brought something very interesting into class, and I'll present an outcome from this year soon. This year, I decided to challenge them a little bit more. The first year was when they were in the 10th grade, and the second year, this year, I said, okay, you guys are a very strong group of 11th graders, 5-pointers. Most of them are very strong and they can do more. They want to do more, and I want them to do more. So I told them, this year we're doing TED Talks again, but we have a topic that we are going to be looking into. And the main subject to all of them was, how can we improve education? And I have to say that the first reaction was disappointment, because they said, no, but I wanted to do, I don't know, about football again, or about gaming, or something that I like. And I said, well, you know what? I know that you wanted to, but I want you to try and look into this topic. And I showed them that this is a vast topic, you can do whatever you want. And I said, you know what, you're always complaining about the health system, about your bagut exams, about the lessons, about schools. Here, tell me, how can you improve it? And they really took the challenge, and it was amazing. They had, we had different, very different TED Talks. And we started by asking questions. So the research question, formulating a research question, was also something they had to learn how to do, and it was part of the process. And I gave them those things to look, those points to take into account. Okay, and we talked about what makes a good research question, how to formulate a research question. So it had to be cleared and focused. It had to be not too broad, but not too narrow, because they want to do what's easy. What the easiest thing to do is to say, okay, cancel bagut exams. I said, okay, but why? What questions are you asking? What do you want to know? And they really started to look into it and ask the questions they wanted to find answers to. And then we sat with their questions, said, okay, but this one is very easy to answer. Can you, it's like, it goes without saying, you don't need to research for answering this question. Can you make something else out of it? And they really spent time during the first lesson to formulate the best research question they could come up with. And then later it helped them with their research, and the research was more focused because they knew what they wanted to find out, what questions they wanted to answer. And then we went to research. Now research is a risky zone because this is the independent work and they work on their own. So I told them we're going to work also in between lessons, but they needed most of the lessons time for researching. So the research was done online. I encouraged them to look to find different sources. Wikipedia is the easiest one, but it doesn't give you answers to every topic. And when you ask questions about education, not necessarily you'll find them there. So they looked into articles, they looked into interviews, filmed interviews in YouTube, which was really nice. And I encouraged them to conduct surveys, and some of them did. And it was a very good experience. They found out, they looked into opinions of students. They looked into opinions of teachers. They asked their parents questions. It was really, really interesting to see what they come up with. And they had all their information. And then we said, okay, you found 3 articles about disciplinary education system in the 50s. A couple did their work on that, and how can we preserve it and bring it to our education today. And I said, okay, so what is important? What do you want to say? Does it help you? How can you use this information in your presentation? And they really had to sort the information they gathered and to write it down and to look and try to see how it works for them, because you want to say something, you want to claim something, so you need to take this information and make it work for you. And they really spend a lot of time on that before starting to write their speeches. And then they wrote their speeches. And we took the rubrics again, and we said, okay, so you need to have order, and you need to think about your word choice. What level of language do you want to use? What level of language can you use? And it needs to be interesting, and think about your body language as you write your speech, because most of them really tried this year to create a show, and it was a big difference from last year when they just talked about something and they were really nervous. They really tried to put on a show this year. And of course their speech got my feedback. We corrected mistakes, and they practiced their speeches also with feedback from me, with memorizing, using cards, recording themselves, practicing with friends. They had different methods, and it was very obvious who practiced and who didn't. And it was part of the feedback they got from me after presenting in class. And then we created a slideshow. So they created, not me. And I said, sure, you don't put too much information on your slideshow and not too little. It should help you as the speaker to remember the things you wanted to say, and to guide you through your 10 minutes. And it should help your audience, and it should be relevant and interesting. So you can see that I added something very irrelevant to my slide, just to demonstrate. It's really important. And they had long discussions about how to build their slideshows. And I'll skip that one, because it's only the slideshow. It's not a really TED talk, and but you'll have it on the slide that you'll get from me in the end. And this is one of my students, is no longer my student, but this is his presentation, 2 minutes of his presentation. Hope it works. And this is not my strongest student. Okay, it's a one that worked very hard and wanted to present and gave a great presentation.
Hello everybody, I have a question for you. What
No, it doesn't work.
is your first scene which pop into your mind when you hear the two?
So, wait, sorry. Okay, it doesn't work. I know you really want to see, but
we
you'll
heard
see it
something.
later.
It was working.
It was working for you?
Yes, you just need to wait.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we
it's
can hear him, Timna. We can hear him clearly.
Okay, it froze on my screen. Okay.
Hello everybody, I have a question for you. What is your first scene which pop into your mind when you hear the two? Workout. Lose weight, run. Maybe gym, maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Do you hear him?
Well, it
No,
keeps
hardly,
going in
hardly.
and out,
Okay,
but I
so
have
let's-
to say, you can tell how amazing it is, even with
Okay,
it,
not
even
really.
with the freezing.
Okay, you'll be able to watch his TED Talk. I asked for his approval, and you'll be able to watch it.
Workout is
Okay, so I really want to leave you time for questions. I'll just say students really loved the project, the TED Talks. They asked me to do it the second year, and we are planning next year when they are going to be 12th graders. And I don't know how much time we'll have, but they really want to do it. So next year we're going to do it with their projects and COPE practices. They really enjoyed it. They said it gave them a lot more than English, and they felt they're gaining skills they might use later in life. I say to myself, it gives them academic skills, and it gives them much more than English. And they felt very proud. I was very proud. I am very proud. I think it's something that should be done because it's really easy. You can do it with many different levels of students. You can choose how deep, how far you want to take it. You have to be very serious. Just let them speak about something that inspires them, and you'll be surprised. It can bring so much out of the students. And I really think it can. There are many more. One last thing I wanted to say, if I had like to think about what could have been done differently, it's always the question: should I make it an event of TED Talks, like conference, or keep it 2-3 presentations every lesson? It depends on time. It depends on how you want to do it. I always want to make an event out of it. My students never want to invite anyone into this event, so we skip it. But I think it can be an awesome part of an English day, for example. And that's it. I took all of your time. Do you have a
Are
question?
you kidding me? You are awesome. We have so much to learn from you. I can't thank you enough for the wonderful presentation that you have shared with us. A lot of time and energy went into this. Thank you very much. Ladies, and maybe there's a gentleman, a couple of gentlemen for Visham. Do you have any questions?
I think it was
I have a
wonderful.
question,
just to
Rebecca.
learn.
Okay,
Rebecca?
okay, one at a
Way
time.
to go, Timna. Way to go.
Thank
Way to
you.
go. I agree with you. Anybody
Rebecca, I have a
else?
question.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
I have
Esther,
a
Esther.
question.
Was
Thank
Esther, you have a
inspiring,
question? One
Timna.
second.
Yeah,
Esther?
Timna, way to go. I just wanted to ask, you said that you gave it 5 lessons of planning, and I was debating whether it was like the whole week or 5 lessons spread out over a month or 2.
No,
How
no.
was it?
5 lessons, one after the other, to do it, to finish with it. Most of my students took the work very seriously, and they wanted to be done with it also in time. For others, it was a little bit more difficult to manage their time, and
Okay,
they
so
had
you're
to
not
be
teaching
encouraged.
anything in between, right?
No, we did the project from beginning to end, and we presented.
Great. I see Katie has her hand
Okay.
is up. Katie, you have a
Can
question?
we get the slide?
You'll get the slide. I think, right, Rebecca? All of the
Yes,
slides are
everything
going
at
to
the
be
end.
shared
After
at the
today's
end.
presentation, we'll get the slides. Everything will be linked. Einat, do you have a question? You have a hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to
Katie?
ask, first of all, it was very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask, what do you do with students who don't want to speak or don't want to do it or don't want to do it in front of the other students?
Okay, so two solutions. First of all, when they were in the 10th grade, some of them say they don't feel confident to talk in front of the whole class, and the work was done. Most of them chose to work in couples. I didn't say it in my presentation, but they chose to work in couples. And then you don't need to stand 5 or 6 minutes in front of the whole classroom. You can just take your parts and work on, and they felt much more comfortable with that because they didn't have to stand alone. All of them presented in a way, and if someone, like I had one student who was really embarrassed about it, and I said, just choose what you're going to say, even 3 sentences. I want you to say something, and then your partner will present the rest. And they really took up the challenge, and it was great. Another thing is that, for example, this year, one of my students in Yud he just didn't do the work. He didn't present, and he felt bad about it. He wanted to, but he just couldn't manage his time. I really tried to help him. I took him to Paltani to work, to sit together and see, but he really, it was his responsibility, and he just couldn't do it. And he told me at the end of the year, I'm really sad about missing this opportunity. But sometimes they don't do it. If they don't want to because they are embarrassed, I think it's easier to work with them. If it's lack of motivation, there is only so much you can do about it.
Oh, thank you. There's a young lady, Arushan Fisher.
Yes, hi, my name is Suzanne. First of all, thank you so much, Timna. It was really, really great. One question I wanted to ask you was regarding the research. How deep did you go into, for example, how to use Google with the various, ways to pinpoint information of for the research itself?
I think that, like I said, the research questions really help them to keep their research more focused.
Yes, but I'm sorry. No, but what I'm referring to is the actual Google. Like when they Google, okay, yes, they have the research question, I agree. But from the point of view of how to use Google and how to, be able to research on Google and be more specific, I wanted to know if you went into depth on that one.
Yeah, most of them manage their way on Google much better than me. And they were able to find different sources. Some of them needed help, and I helped them. Like I said, I gave the example of those 2 who want to write about the disciplinary system, and I said, okay, so you're talking about the 50s. Let's look into education in the 50s. What method did they use? And so I gave them a little help, but most of them really managed without me. Or they showed me, I found 4 articles. They wanted me to help them to decide which one it was better. So that's what I'm here for. That's why I was there with them, and it wasn't completely done by them on their own.
Is it a peer work? Is it a peer work most of the time?
Is it what?
A peer work or individual? They could choose?
I said most of them chose to work in couples.
What I think is best.
Can we raise our hands, please?
Sorry?
Can we raise our hands because there are other people that were waiting as well?
Okay, I'll just say that they wanted to, most of them found it easier to work in couples. I think it's better because then you have some control. And another opportunity to speak in English with each other. So better to do that in couples.
Great, we have we have a minute, 1 more minute, 2 more minutes. We have a wonderful person who's been waiting. A lot of you have been waiting patiently. Ms. Gabby, goodbye. Mrs.
I'm Gabby, but I don't know if you're referring to me. My
Yes,
question
yes,
is,
I'm referring to you. You're on my.
do you allow them to research in Hebrew? Because I find that my students first go to Wikipedia in Hebrew and then they're willing to look at things in English as well.
For this group, like I said, it's a very strong group of 5 pointers. I challenged them to do it in English, but some of them had asked me if they can do it in Hebrew, and I said yes, you can. And then anyway, they needed to present in English, so they had to understand how to translate, and it's also a skill they can work on, so it's fine. I think anything can work. I just want them to think, write, speak, present in English eventually.
All right, we're about to close the breakout room. If you have one tiny question, one short question, Gali, we have 49 seconds. If not, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Tamni, you did an awesome job with your TED Talks. I can't wait to do it myself with my pupils. Good luck to everyone. And now it is time to go back to our main breakout room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Timna.
When you're in a breakout room, it won't let me. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're just going to wait for one more room to come back. And then we're going to continue. Good. Is everyone back? I think so. I think everyone's back. So welcome back. I hope you